Beloved chosen one, listen carefully. What you are experiencing right now, the mental fog, the emotional heaviness, the strange sense that nothing fits the way it used to, is not a mistake. This confusion did not come to weaken you. It came to announce movement. Confusion appears when change is near, because the old structure of your life can no longer contain what God is preparing to shift. You are not losing direction. You are standing at the edge of transition. There was a time when things felt stable. You knew what to expect from people. You knew how your days would unfold. You knew which decisions were right. But now, certainty has slipped through your fingers. You hesitate over choices that once felt obvious. Your heart feels pulled in two directions. You ask yourself in silence, why does everything feel unclear right when I'm trying to move forward? This is not coincidence. This is not weakness. This is the sign that the ground beneath you is being repositioned. Confusion is often the language of change. Before God builds something new, He loosens what was fixed. If everything remained clear, you would never question, never seek, never grow. So clarity withdraws for a moment, not to abandon you, but to awaken discernment. Consider a very real situation in your life right now. At your job, you are still showing up. You're still productive. But internally, you feel disconnected. The tasks that once energized you now drain you. You start wondering if this role still fits the person you are becoming. Yet no clear alternative appears. This tension creates confusion, but it is not meant to trap you. It is meant to signal readiness. God often allows dissatisfaction before redirection. The same confusion may show up in your finances. You might not be broke, but you feel uneasy. You question how you're managing money. Old habits no longer bring peace. You feel nudged to be more disciplined, more intentional, but you don't fully see why yet. This is not fear, it is preparation. Financial confusion often precedes a shift in stewardship or responsibility, even within your family or close relationships. Confusion can rise. Conversations feel different. Roles feel blurred. You sense distance where there used to be ease. This doesn't mean love is gone. It means growth is demanding adjustment. You are no longer who you were, and your relationships must evolve with you. Here is what matters most. Confusion does not mean God is silent. It means He is working beneath the surface. When the soil is being turned, it looks messy, but it is necessary for growth. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it linger. Wait for it. It will surely come and will not delay." This word speaks directly to your season. Vision does not always arrive immediately. Sometimes it lingers. Sometimes it hides behind uncertainty, but it is never late. Confusion fills the space between promise and manifestation. Waiting does not mean nothing is happening. It means timing is being perfected. The real test is not whether confusion shows up. The test is what you do while it's present. Do you rush into decisions just to escape discomfort? Do you cling to what is familiar even when your spirit knows it's time to move? Or do you stay still long enough to let wisdom form? Chosen one. Confusion is uncomfortable because it strips control. It forces dependence. It teaches you to listen instead of assume. Many people fail here not because they are unqualified, but because they refuse to wait. But you are not here by accident. This message reached you because patience is being trained in you right now. Let me ask you a direct question. Answer it honestly in your heart. What if this confusion is not blocking your future, but protecting you from moving too early? There is hope here, and it is concrete. You will not remain suspended forever. The fog will lift. When it does, the clarity will be sharper than before because it will be anchored in maturity, not impulse. You will see connections you couldn't see before. You will recognize doors that were invisible while you were rushing. This is why I encourage you, pause with me for a moment. If this speaks to your current season, take a second to like and share this message so another chosen one doesn't mistake transition for failure. And if you haven't subscribed yet, stay connected because what is unfolding here is meant to guide you through this shift, not just warn you about it. Confusion is not your enemy. It is the hallway between who you were and who you are becoming. Do not decorate the hallway, walk through it. And as a quiet act of alignment, type 555 in the comments, not for attention, but as a declaration. I choose to wait for God's timing instead of forcing my own. Chosen one, there is a reason the clarity you once had no longer works. What used to guide you effortlessly has gone silent, not because you failed, but because it expired. Old clarity dies when it can no longer serve the future God is forming. And this death feels unsettling because clarity gave you control, reassurance, and predictability. Losing it feels like losing ground. But in truth, you are losing limits. You keep asking yourself why the same methods, the same thinking patterns, the same spiritual habits don't bring peace anymore. You pray the same prayers, but they feel empty. You analyze situations the way you used to, but the answers don't come. This is not regression. This is transition maturity. God does not allow you to rely on outdated understanding when He is preparing you for deeper discernment. Old clarity is comfortable because it is familiar. It tells you, this worked before, so it will work again. But growth disrupts that logic. When your capacity increases, your previous clarity becomes insufficient. It starts producing confusion because it was never designed to carry the weight of the next assignment. Look at a concrete example from daily life. In your career, you may have once been crystal clear about your path. You knew the ladder, you knew the timeline, you knew the steps. But now, even though you've gained experience and skill, the path feels blurred. Promotions don't excite you. Stability doesn't satisfy you. This confusion is not because you lost ambition. It's because your definition of purpose is changing. Old clarity focused on achievement. New clarity will focus on alignment. This same pattern shows up in finances. There was a time when your goal was simple: earn more, save more, survive. But now, even if your income has increased, peace has not. You feel tension around spending, investing, and giving. You hesitate. You question motives. This is not indecision. This is the death of a survival mindset, making room for stewardship awareness. Old clarity was about security. New clarity will be about responsibility and impact. Even emotionally, you feel the loss of clarity. You used to know how to react, how to protect yourself, how to shut down when needed. But now, those emotional defenses feel heavy. You feel exposed, sensitive, unsure. This is not weakness. This is emotional recalibration. God often removes emotional certainty before healing deeper layers of the heart. The mistake many people make is trying to resurrect old clarity. They force old answers onto new questions. They repeat patterns that once worked but now produce frustration. This is why confusion lingers longer than necessary. It is resisting resurrection. Old clarity must stay buried so new vision can breathe. The Word of God speaks directly into this moment. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. This verse is often misunderstood. It does not say run, it says stand. Crossroads are inherently confusing places, multiple directions, no immediate certainty. But standing still is not stagnation, it is discernment. Rest comes not from rushing, but from choosing the right way, not the easiest way. Old clarity pushes speed. New clarity requires stillness. You are learning something essential right now. Clarity is not information, it is formation. God is shaping how you perceive, not just what you decide. That takes time. That takes unlearning. That takes patience. Consider a family situation. You may have once known exactly how to handle certain dynamics: avoidance, silence, compliance, control. But now, those responses feel wrong. You feel torn between speaking up and keeping peace. This confusion exists because God is inviting you into healthier boundaries, not familiar patterns. Old clarity protected survival. New clarity will cultivate truth. This is why everything feels slower. You second guess, you pause, you reflect, you feel unsure. But beneath that uncertainty, something deeper is forming wisdom. Wisdom is quieter than certainty. It does not shout answers. It waits until timing aligns. Here is a hard truth, spoken gently. If old clarity had remained, you would have stayed where you were. You would have repeated cycles. You would have built comfort instead of calling. So clarity had to die. Let me ask you a direct question, one meant to settle into you. What if the clarity you miss would have kept you smaller than the clarity God is preparing to give you? There is hope here, and it is grounded. New clarity does not come all at once. It comes in layers. First, conviction, then discernment, then confidence. You will begin to sense what no longer belongs. Then you will sense what aligns. Eventually, you will move not rushed, not pressured, but anchored. This season is not about answers. It is about depth. When clarity returns, and it will not be fragile. It will not collapse under pressure. It will not depend on circumstances. It will be rooted in who you have become. You are not lost. You are being recalibrated. And when the fog lifts, you will not simply see a path, you will recognize yourself walking it. Chosen one, you must reframe what you are walking through right now. Transition is not an empty space. It is not a pause. It is not a void where nothing is happening. Transition is a battlefield, quiet on the surface, but intensely active beneath. Confusion deepens in this phase not because God stepped back, but because resistance stepped in. The enemy does not attack beginnings or endings as fiercely as he attacks crossings. When you leave one season but have not fully entered the next, you are most vulnerable to distortion. Thoughts feel heavier. Doubt feels louder. Motivation fluctuates without warning. This is not random. This is strategy. If the enemy can't stop your calling, he will try to exhaust you mid-transition. This is why you must stop interpreting confusion as emptiness. There is nothing empty about this season. There is pressure because something valuable is moving. You don't guard abandoned land. You guard land that is being claimed. Let's bring this down to daily life. Think about a very ordinary morning. You wake up already tired. Nothing dramatic happened. No bad news. No crisis. Yet your mind feels crowded. You replay conversations. You question decisions. You feel irritation over small things. That is not coincidence. That is mental warfare during transition. The enemy targets mornings because they set direction for the day. Or consider your work day. You sit at your desk, but focus slips. You scroll longer than usual. You procrastinate tasks you're capable of completing. Then guilt creeps in, whispering, You're losing discipline. No, you are being pressured at a threshold. Awareness of this changes everything. You don't condemn yourself. You counter strategically. Here is the first practical instruction. Name the season correctly. Stop saying, "I'm stuck." Start saying, "I'm crossing." Language matters because it shapes response. When you think you're stuck, you wait passively. When you know you're crossing, you stay alert. Second instruction. Reduce unnecessary input. During transition, your discernment is sharpening, but it is also sensitive. Too many opinions, too much noise, too much comparison will intensify confusion. This is not the season to crowdsource direction. This is the season to simplify. Fewer voices, fewer distractions, clearer signal. Third instruction. Stabilize your routines, not your outcomes. You may not control results right now, but you can control rhythms. Wake time, prayer time, work blocks, physical movement. Warfare thrives in chaos but loses strength in consistency. Even small routines create spiritual footing. Fourth instruction. Separate emotion from instruction. In transition, emotions fluctuate. One day you feel bold, the next day you feel drained. Do not let feelings dictate obedience. Write down what you know God has already told you: principles, convictions, values, and act from that list, not from the mood of the day. This is where many people fail. They assume peace must come before obedience. But often, peace comes after obedience in a hostile environment. The Word of God exposes this reality clearly. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." Notice what this verse does. It reframes the struggle. It tells you the confusion is not just psychological, circumstantial, or relational. There is an unseen layer. And once you see that, you stop fighting people, situations, or yourself, and you start standing strategically. Let's apply this to relationships. During transition, misunderstandings increase. People may misread your silence. They may feel you've changed. They may resist your growth. The enemy loves relational friction during transition because it drains focus. The instruction here is simple but powerful. Don't explain everything. Not everyone needs access to your process. Silence is not weakness. It is protection. Financially, warfare looks subtle. Unexpected expenses, delayed payments, second-guessing generosity, fear of future lack. The instruction here: stay honest and steady. Don't make fear-based decisions to regain control. Short-term relief can sabotage long-term alignment. Here is another key practice: track patterns, not moments. One bad day doesn't define the season. One confused thought doesn't define your direction. Look for repetition. Where does resistance show up consistently? That's where growth is closest. Opposition marks importance. Now let me ask you a direct question. This one requires courage. What if the intensity you feel is proof that something significant is being contested, not denied? This is where hope becomes practical. You are not wandering. You are advancing under pressure. And pressure does not mean retreat, it means engagement. Right now, I want you to anchor this truth actively. In the comments, write this short phrase, only 2 words: I stand. Here is why this matters. You are not declaring victory yet. You are declaring position. Standing means you recognize the battlefield and refuse to surrender ground emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. It is a posture before it becomes an outcome. Chosen one. Battlefields don't last forever. They exist between movements. When this transition completes, you will not just arrive somewhere new, you will arrive trained, more discerning, more grounded, less reactive, harder to deceive. Do not fear the resistance, learn from it. Do not rush the crossing, hold your ground. You are not in the wrong place. You are in a contested place, and that means you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Chosen one, before elevation comes separation. This is the part of the journey few are prepared for, because it doesn't look holy at first. It looks lonely, it looks like distance, it feels like loss. But separation is not rejection, it is precision. God is narrowing your path so your next step can be taken without divided weight. You begin to notice it subtly. Certain conversations no longer nourish you. Certain environments exhaust you instead of inspiring you. People you once felt deeply connected to now feel strangely distant, not because anyone is wrong, but because alignment has shifted. This is not arrogance. This is not coldness. This is growth requiring space. Separation hurts because it exposes attachments you didn't realize were holding you together. When God removes what once supported you emotionally, socially, or mentally, it feels like instability. But in truth, He is teaching you how to stand without leaning. Look at a very real, everyday situation. In your work life, you may find yourself outgrowing a team culture you once enjoyed. The jokes don't land the same. The goals don't inspire you. You still perform, but you feel like a visitor in a place that once felt like home. This discomfort is not ingratitude. It is transition integrity. You are being detached so you don't confuse familiarity with calling. In family dynamics, separation often shows up as silence, not arguments, just quiet distance. You stop explaining yourself as much. You stop defending your choices. You realize not everyone needs to understand your process. This is not rebellion. This is boundary formation. God is teaching you the difference between honor and access. Financially, separation can feel like restraint. You no longer spend the way you used to. Certain comforts lose their appeal. You feel led to simplify, to pull back, to say no. This isn't lack, it's focus. Before increase comes, distraction must leave. Here is the hard truth: you cannot carry everything into the next season. Elevation demands lightness, and separation is how God reduces weight without damaging you. If He told you ahead of time what would be removed, you might resist. So He lets it drift away naturally. The pain of separation often comes from misunderstanding its purpose. We assume loss means something went wrong. But in the kingdom, loss often means room is being made. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 2, "Every branch that bears fruit He prunes, that it may bear more fruit." Notice this carefully. The branch is already bearing fruit. Pruning is not punishment for failure, it is preparation for increase. God does not prune dead branches. He prunes fruitful ones, which means if you feel cut back, reduced, or limited, it is not because you are lacking, it is because you are producing. Separation sharpens discernment. You begin to see clearly who walks with you out of convenience and who walks with you in covenant. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your vision to people who cannot see beyond their own season. This clarity is quiet, but it is powerful. Let me ask you a direct question, one that may sting before it heals. Who are you trying to carry into the next season that God never asked you to bring? Elevation does not happen in crowds. It happens in obedience. There is hope here, and it is tangible. After separation comes alignment. New relationships form naturally, not forced, not rushed. Conversations feel effortless again. Support appears without begging. You recognize kindred spirits by peace, not intensity. God never removes without replacing, but he replaces later, not immediately. So you don't substitute depth with distraction. And now, let this moment remain gentle. You are not being asked to prove anything, only to notice what resonates, like finding a smooth stone along the path and keeping it not because you were told to, but because it feels meaningful. If something in these words feels familiar to your spirit, let your hand rest briefly on that recognition, like pressing, like as one quietly nods in understanding. If you sense this message could steady someone else who is also walking through separation, allow it to travel softly, the way a folded letter slips beneath a door. That is what it means to share without noise, without force. And if, in your heart, you know this journey is still unfolding, if you wish to remain near this stream of guidance as new ground is revealed, choose to stay. Like setting a small lamp on a windowsill so its light can return night after night. That quiet decision is what it means to subscribe, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. Chosen one, separation is not the end of connection. It is the refinement of it. You are not being isolated, you are being positioned. When the time comes, you will look back and realize the distance saved you. Stand still in this pruning. Do not chase what is falling away. Let it go cleanly, gracefully, without resentment. Because what is being prepared for you requires space, and you are finally making room. Chosen one, let us begin with a story that feels ancient, yet painfully relevant to your present moment. Naaman was a powerful man, respected or accomplished, decorated with honor. Yet beneath the armor, beneath the reputation, he carried a hidden condition: leprosy. Something no title could cure, something no status could hide. When he finally sought help, he expected a grand solution, a dramatic ritual, a prophet who would come out, speak loudly, lay hands, and confirm his importance. Instead, Naaman received an instruction that felt almost insulting. No stage, no spectacle, just a messenger saying, "Go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. A muddy river, common water, a simple act. Naaman was offended not because the instruction was difficult, but because it felt beneath him. He nearly walked away from his healing, not due to disbelief, but because obedience required humility. Only when he obeyed what didn't make sense did transformation occur. This is where your story and his intersect right now. God is not giving you dramatic clarity. He is giving you quiet instruction. And they feel too small for the size of your problem, too simple for the complexity of your confusion, too ordinary for the weight you're carrying. That is not accidental. That is the test. Confusion often intensifies when the instruction contradicts logic. God will ask you to do something that doesn't match your intellect, your experience, or your expectations, because obedience is being tested, not intelligence. Let's bring this into daily life. At work, the instruction may be restraint instead of reaction. You want to confront, you want to explain, you want to demand clarity, but the instruction is to wait, to do your work quietly, to stop over-explaining. It feels illogical, it feels passive, but obedience here is not weakness, it is positioning. Financially, the instruction may be discipline instead of expansion. You want to invest, to leap, to fix the anxiety by doing more. But the instruction is to simplify, to pause, to close leaks before opening doors. It feels counterintuitive when pressure is high. Yet obedience in finances often looks like patience disguised as limitation. In relationships, the instruction may be silence instead of defense. You want to correct misunderstandings. You want to prove your heart, but the instruction is to let God be your witness. This feels unfair, but obedience here protects your peace and exposes truth over time. This is why Section 5 matters so deeply. Confusion is not resolved by force, It is resolved by obedience without full understanding. The Word of God records this principle clearly, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old in the second book of Kings, chapter 5, verse 14. So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, according to the word of the man of God, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Notice the order. He went down, then he dipped, then restoration followed. Humility first, action second, clarity last. You are being asked to go down right now, not in value, but in posture. To release the need to be right. To release the need for guarantees. To release the demand that God explain himself before you move. Here is where many chosen ones stumble. They obey selectively. They follow the instruction that makes sense and ignore the one that feels unreasonable. But Naaman's healing was not partial. It came after full obedience, not partial compliance. Let me speak plainly. The instruction God is giving you right now may feel strangely specific and deeply uncomfortable. It may look like applying for something you feel underqualified for, even though every part of you wants to wait until you feel ready. It may look like letting go of a relationship you still care about, even though it hasn't completely fallen apart. It may be a quiet return to a discipline you once abandoned because life became too heavy. It may be learning to say no where you used to say yes, or choosing faithfulness in a place where no one notices and no one applauds. And your mind keeps asking, how does this solve anything? Naaman asked the same question. Obedience is not about understanding the river. It is about trusting the voice that sent you to it. Here is a crucial truth: confusion fades after obedience, not before it. If clarity came first, obedience would be unnecessary. Faith would be optional. God is forming something deeper than certainty. He is forming trust under pressure. Let me ask you a direct question, and let it confront you honestly. What instruction have you delayed because it didn't feel important enough to matter? That instruction, the one you minimized, is often the key. There is hope here, and it is very real. When you obey, even imperfectly, momentum returns. Peace doesn't explode, it settles. The fog doesn't vanish instantly, it thins, but suddenly, you realize you are no longer stuck. You are moving again. And movement changes everything. Naaman didn't feel healed on the first dip, or the second, or the third. He felt foolish, exposed, questioning, but he kept going. Obedience that transforms is rarely dramatic, it is repetitive and quiet. Chosen one, you are closer than you think. Not because circumstances changed, but because obedience is already within reach. If this speaks to your season, mark it not loudly, not for show. In the comments, type 888. This number is not magic. It is a marker. It says I will obey even when I don't fully understand. It says I won't walk away from the river just because it looks ordinary. Your healing, your clarity, your next level, they are waiting on the other side of simple obedience. And this time, you will not turn back. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every true transition when the confusion does not disappear all at once, but it loosens its grip. You don't wake up suddenly knowing everything. Instead, you notice something quieter and more profound. The noise inside you calms. The urgency fades, the pressure to force answers dissolves. This is the moment clarity begins to return, not as excitement, but as alignment. Clarity does not arrive like a lightning strike. It arrives like dawn, slowly, almost unnoticed, but unmistakable once it is fully present. You begin to sense it in small ways. Decisions that once felt impossible no longer feel heavy. You still don't have the full picture, but you trust the next step. You stop rehearsing every possible outcome. You stop arguing internally. Something settles. This is how discernment matures. This stage comes after obedience, after separation, after humility. It cannot be rushed, and it cannot be faked. That is why so few recognize it when it first appears. They are looking for certainty, but God gives peace. Think about your daily life. At work, the same environment exists, but your relationship to it changes. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself constantly. You know what is yours to carry and what is not. You focus more clearly. You waste less energy on distractions. You don't have all the answers about the future, but you are no longer anxious about tomorrow. That is clarity returning. Financially, clarity shows up as restraint paired with confidence. You are no longer impulsive, but you are also no longer afraid. You make decisions from stability instead of urgency. You feel guided rather than pressured. This is not luck. This is discernment refined through waiting. In relationships, clarity brings emotional sobriety. You see people more accurately. You stop romanticizing potential and stop demonizing limitations. You accept truth without resentment. Some connections deepen, others remain distant without hostility. You are no longer confused about where you stand, even if conversations haven't happened yet. Inner clarity often arrives before external resolution. This is an important truth to understand. Clarity does not mean everything makes sense. It means you are no longer divided. Earlier, confusion pulled you in multiple directions at once. One voice said move, another said stay, one said speak, another said be silent. Now, even without full answers, there is unity inside you. One direction holds more weight than the others. One option brings peace, even if it brings challenge. That is the mark of clarity. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 119, verse 105. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Notice the precision of this verse. A lamp does not illuminate the entire journey. It gives light one step at a time. Clarity in this season is not about seeing far ahead. It is about seeing enough to move forward without fear. This is why you begin to feel guided even when circumstances remain uncertain. You trust timing more. You resist shortcuts. You no longer need constant confirmation from others. You listen more closely. You respond instead of react. Here is something many people misunderstand. When clarity returns, temptation does not disappear. Distractions still exist. Old habits still whisper, but they no longer dominate. They lose authority because you are no longer desperate for relief. Desperation fuels confusion. Stability weakens it. You may notice that your prayers change. You ask fewer questions. You sit more quietly. You listen more than you speak. You no longer demand signs. You recognize alignment when it appears. This is spiritual maturity at work. There is also grief in this stage, though it is subtle. You grieve the version of yourself that needed chaos to feel alive. You grieve old identities that thrived on urgency. You grieve relationships that cannot meet you here. This grief is not backward, it is integrated. You carry it without being controlled by it. Everyday life reflects this integration. Your schedule becomes simpler. Your boundaries become clearer. Your words become fewer but truer. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You conserve energy. You invest attention wisely. This is clarity with weight. And here is the quiet miracle when clarity returns. You realize it was forming long before you noticed it. Every delayed answer, every closed door, every season of silence was shaping how you see. The confusion did not waste you. It trained you. Let me ask you a question, not to challenge you, but to ground you. Can you feel the difference between not knowing and not being afraid of not knowing anymore? That difference is clarity. From here, movement becomes natural, not rushed, not forced. Natural. You stop chasing momentum. Momentum follows alignment. You take steps that make sense to your spirit, even if they confuse others. You are not reckless. You are resolved. Chosen one. This stage does not announce itself loudly, but it is unmistakable. You breathe differently. You rest more deeply. You trust quietly. You are no longer fighting the season. You are walking with it. And from this place, the next assignment will soon reveal itself, not because you searched harder, but because you are finally positioned to recognize it. Chosen one. This is the moment where movement becomes assignment. Not movement born from restlessness, but movement born from recognition. You are no longer asking, "What is happening to me?" You are beginning to sense, "This is what I have been prepared for." The confusion had a purpose. The silence had a shape. The delay carried intention. And now, the change you once feared reveals itself as an entrance, not an ending. Stepping into the new assignment does not arrive with spectacle. There is no trumpet sound, no dramatic announcement. It comes quietly, with weight. You wake up one day and realize something has shifted inside you. Your thoughts are steadier, your reactions slower, your decisions firmer. You have not become louder, you have become clearer. This clarity begins to express itself in ordinary places. At work, you no longer chase visibility. You carry responsibility differently. People begin to sense consistency in you. They trust your words because they are not rushed. You stop striving for position and begin walking in function. You understand now that authority follows alignment, not ambition. In your finances, the assignment looks like stewardship instead of survival. Money no longer defines your peace or panic. You plan with intention. You delay gratification without resentment. You give with discernment. You save without fear. Provision becomes partnership instead of pressure. You are no longer reacting to lack, you are responding to wisdom. In relationships, you step into emotional leadership. You listen without absorbing chaos. You speak without needing to dominate. You allow others to be where they are without shrinking where you are going. Some relationships deepen because truth is now welcome. Others fade because growth exposes incompatibility. You release both without bitterness. This is not perfection. You still feel human hesitation. You still ask careful questions, but you are no longer wandering. You know where your feet are planted, even if the horizon is still forming. Scripture speaks to this threshold with clarity and promise. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 9, "What no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love Him." This is not poetic exaggeration, it is preparation language. What lies ahead of you required refinement. That refinement came disguised as confusion, pruning, obedience, and waiting. You could not have carried what is coming without being reshaped first. Your assignment now is not to rush ahead. It is to walk worthy, to bring integrity into every space you enter, to remain grounded when others rush, to be led rather than driven, to hold truth without arrogance. Let me ask you a final, anchoring question. Are you willing to carry what God is entrusting to you without shrinking it to fit someone else's comfort? Because this is often the final crossing. There is a quiet beauty in this stage. You no longer need applause. You no longer need constant confirmation. Like a tree that finally bears fruit, you let the fruit speak for itself. Those who are hungry will recognize it. Those who are not will walk past. You remain rooted either way, Now, this moment does not demand response, but it does invite choice. If this journey has felt less like a performance and more like a mirror, you do not owe it noise. Some acknowledgments are meant to be gentle, the way a traveler leaves a smooth stone on a mountain path, not to be noticed, but to say, "I passed through here, and I was changed," if that resonates. Let your presence be marked softly, like pressing, like the way one nods in quiet recognition. And if these words feel too alive to keep to yourself, if you sense another soul standing at their own threshold, unsure whether the fog means failure or formation, then release this message the way one releases a lantern onto a dark river. No force, no explanation, just trust. That is how a share becomes an act of care rather than noise. And if, deep within you, you know this is not a one-time encounter but a path you want to continue walking, if you feel drawn to return when clarity blurs again, then choose to remain. Not bound, not obligated, but connected. Like placing a lamp in the window so the same light can guide you home night after night. That quiet decision is what it means to subscribe not to a voice, but to a rhythm that keeps you aligned. Chosen one, you are not stepping into randomness. You are stepping into something earned through obedience. The confusion did not weaken you. It refined you. The delay did not deny you. It positioned you. Walk forward now, slowly and intentionally and without apology. What lies ahead of you is not louder than what you left behind. It is simply truer. Before you leave this space, pause for a moment longer. Not to analyze, not to decide anything, just to notice what stayed with you. Some words are meant to pass through quickly, like wind through an open window. Others settle quietly, like dust in a beam of light, only visible if you stop moving. This message does not demand agreement. It does not require response. It simply offers itself and then releases you back into your life. If what you heard today was helpful, you will know. Not because it was loud or dramatic, but because something inside you feels slightly more grounded, slightly more honest. If that is the case, you may choose to let it travel gently, without explanation, so that someone else who is standing in their own moment of transition might recognize themselves in it. That kind of sharing is never forced. It happens naturally, like offering water when you see thirst. And if this message did not feel useful in its entirety, that is also okay. You are not meant to carry everything. Simply keep what touched you, a sentence, an image, a quiet reminder. Let the rest fall away. Wisdom often comes in fragments, and fragments are enough to guide the next step. You do not need to label this moment. You do not need to remember it perfectly. You only need to move forward a little more aware than you were before. Life will continue to ask things of you. Decisions will still appear. Uncertainty will still visit from time to time. But now, perhaps, you will recognize confusion sooner, not as a sign of failure, but as a signal that change is near. That understanding alone is enough to shift how you walk. So go gently, carry lightly, trust what resonated, release what didn't. And when you find yourself standing at another threshold one day, you'll remember you've been here before, and you learned how to listen. That is more than enough to continue.